I'm Riley, 26, and I'm writing this from a rented room that smells like peppermint and old dust, but it's mine. The silence feels strange after months of screaming voices, clinking dishes, and slammed doors. My back still aches from the hours I spent bending over trays and scrub buckets just to pay for a wedding I wasn't even invited to in the end. I was the ghost in my own home, working 80 hours a week while my sister posed in white dresses and diamond bracelets. And when I found out the real reason they needed my money, I nearly threw up. They didn't want me to help, they wanted me to stay quiet. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself when it matters most. Now let me take you back to how this all began. It started with a text. Can you pick up Sunday too? I didn't even finish reading the rest. I was already sliding on my worn out sneakers, grabbing the tattered lanyard with my ID badge from the floor and rushing out the door. The bus was late that morning again. I stood in the drizzle, feeling the cold bite through my hoodie. My hands were raw from scrubbing floors at the catering company, my eyes stung from lack of sleep, and I hadn't had a proper meal in 2 days. But none of that mattered because my parents said Leona's wedding has to be perfect. They never said please. Leona's wedding had become a full-time job, my full-time job. I picked up every available shift, sometimes 2 jobs back to back. I cleaned office buildings at night and flipped omelets at a diner before dawn. I stopped going out with friends. I stopped going anywhere, really. The only time I got to see. My bed was to drop face first onto it for 3 hours before the next alarm. And when I'd wake up, there'd be a new list of things to pay for floral arches, cake tastings, spa days. She got spa days. I got shin splints. Mom and Dad would always say the same thing. You're doing this for your sister. This is what family does. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like servitude. Leona was 7 years older, always the dazzling one. She won pageants, dated lawyers, and somehow always managed to fall upward. I, on the other hand, was invisible. Not the black sheep, just background noise. They called me reliable, responsible, the good daughter in the practical sense, but never the adored one. I knew my place, or at least I thought I did, until one afternoon I came home from work early and heard something that shifted everything. Leona was on speakerphone in the living room. Her voice was muffled at first, but then clear. Yeah, don't worry about the money. Riley's covering most of it. She's a little workhorse, doesn't even ask questions. I stood frozen in the hallway. There was a pause, then laughter. Her laughter, I know, right? She actually thinks she's helping. My stomach flipped. My vision blurred. I don't know how long I stood there, but something inside me cracked. Not snap cracked. A hairline fracture that would eventually split everything wide open, and for the first time in my life, I stopped feeling guilty for being angry. I didn't say anything that night. I just backed away from the hallway, my feet soft against the wood floor, my breath held like a guilty secret. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and stood in silence, staring at the peeling wallpaper like it might give me an answer. Her words played in my head on repeat. She's a little workhorse, doesn't even ask questions. Was that what I was to them? A mule they could load up with debt and excuses? The next morning, I packed my apron and name tag like nothing had happened, but everything felt heavier. The dishes at the diner clattered louder. The smell of bacon made me sick. I fumbled my orders. Even the regulars noticed old Mr. Jensen gave me a concerned look and whispered, "You all right, sugar?" I nodded, but I wasn't all right. I was unraveling. Leona posted a photo that afternoon. I saw it during my break, leaning against the alley wall, trying to cool down. She was standing in a bridal boutique surrounded by tulle and velvet, captioned, "Found the one, thanks Mom and Dad." But I knew better. My parents didn't have money. They hadn't had money since Dad's hours got cut last winter. And Mom's health coaching business turned into a daily excuse to post detox smoothies online. So where was this money coming from? The answer came that night when I got home and saw the bank statement sitting open on the kitchen table. It wasn't addressed to me, but I'd worked enough hours to recognize the transactions. $3,000 to Beverly Bridal, $950 to a luxury spa, $600 to a venue deposit, all from the joint account, the one they added my name to when I turned 18, just in case. I felt like the floor tilted under me. That account was ours, but they were treating it like it was theirs. My savings, my overtime, my future. I'd been saving to take night classes in graphic design, to maybe, just maybe, get out of a diner and build something for myself, and they were burning it on flower walls and champagne towers. At dinner, I pushed peas around my plate, barely tasting a thing. Mom chatted about seating charts while Leona gushed about peonies and pearls. Dad barely looked up from his phone. I asked quietly, "How are we paying for all this?" The silence was immediate. Mom blinked. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "I mean, the venue, the dress, the spa." I saw the bank statement. Leona scoffed. "Were you snooping?" I looked at her. "Dead on. It has my name on it." Dad finally spoke. "This is a family investment, Riley. You'll understand when it's your turn." My turn? I nearly laughed. I didn't even have time to date, let alone get married. I was working 2 jobs while they planned someone else's fantasy, and they were calling it an investment. And what, exactly? I asked Leona's Instagram followers. Mom gasped. "Don't be cruel." But I wasn't being cruel, I was being honest. Something they clearly weren't used to from me. That night, Leona came to my room. She didn't knock, just opened the door and leaned against the frame like she owned it. "Don't start drama right now," she said. "Everything's already planned. Planned with my money." She rolled her eyes. "You live here rent-free. You don't pay for groceries. You think working a couple shifts makes you Mother Teresa?" I stood up. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed calm. "I work 80 hours a week, Leona. I'm exhausted. I've given up my life for your wedding." She crossed her arms. "And you're still nothing without us? That did it?" Not the hours, not the betrayal, not even the money. It was that sentence. "You're still nothing without us." That's when something inside me turned cold. I realized she didn't just want my money. She wanted my silence, my submission. She needed me to stay small so she could stay shiny, but I wasn't going to be nothing anymore. The next morning, I texted my manager and asked for a weekend off, my first in nearly a year. She was shocked. I told her I had something to figure out. Then I started digging. I opened every drawer. I looked at every piece of mail. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for until I found it, an envelope in Dad's office drawer, half hidden under a stack of unpaid bills. It was addressed to someone I didn't recognize. Inside, a check stub, made out for $10,000 from someone named Vincent Meyer. I didn't know who he was yet, but I would. And when I did, everything about Leona's perfect wedding would unravel. I held the envelope in my hands like it might burn through my skin. Vincent Meyer. The name meant nothing to me. The $10,000 meant everything. I flipped through the papers again, looking for a note, a memo, something to explain why a check like that had come through our house. But there was nothing. Just the stub and a postmark from 2 months ago. That's when it hit me. This check came in after I'd started working overtime. After I'd been asked to help out for Leona's big day. And yet, not a dime of it had gone to pay off the credit card we were supposedly drowning under. Not to groceries, not to bills. That money had vanished just like mine had. I didn't sleep that night. I laid awake, replaying every memory I could of the past year. The subtle glances my mom gave Leona when I questioned anything. The sudden shift in mood when I'd enter the room. The whispers I thought were just wedding stress. And the calls, oh God, the late night calls. I remembered walking past Leona's room one night and hearing her giggle like a teenager. I thought it was just her fiance, but what if it wasn't? The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Mariah, my old high school best friend. We hadn't talked much since graduation. She'd moved across the state. Started law school, but I remembered she used to have a weird obsession with internet sleuthing. If anyone could dig up something on a mysterious name like Vincent K. Meyer, it was her. She answered on the second ring. Riley? Holy crap, are you okay? I wasn't, but I laughed. Not even close. Over the next hour, I explained everything. The long shifts, the missing money, the envelope, the way Leona looked at me like I was nothing more than a workhorse. Mariah didn't even hesitate. Send me everything. I'll run his name. I did, and then I waited. And waited. By nightfall, she texted, "You're not going to like this, but you need to see it." Attached was a screenshot. A company profile for Vincent K. Meyer, a wealthy CEO based in the next city over. Real estate, hospitality, boutique resorts, married, 2 kids. Philanthropist. But that wasn't what made my stomach drop. It was the photo. I'd seen him before once at the house. He had come by in a sleek black car, some excuse about Dad selling old tools. On Craigslist. They'd talked outside while I passed through the kitchen. He was tall, sharply dressed, with salt and pepper hair and a watch that probably cost more than my yearly income. And now I knew why he looked so familiar. Because 2 weeks ago, I had caught a glimpse of him again in a photo Leona had been showing Mom, a business associate of Ethan's. She'd claimed Ethan being her fiance, but if that was true, why was Vincent K. Meyer sending our family $10,000? And why, when I clicked on his LinkedIn profile, did I find Leona listed as a freelance marketing consultant for his resort chain? My breath caught. I stared at the screen like it would rearrange itself into something that made sense. It didn't. None of this made sense unless they weren't just associates. Unless the wedding, the spa days, the hush-hush attitude wasn't about celebrating love. It was about hiding a secret. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I needed more. I needed truth-hard proof. So for the next 3 days, I pretended everything was fine. I went to work. I smiled at dinner. I even complimented the hideous cake samples Mom brought home. But inside, I was spiraling. My heart felt like it was beating out of rhythm. My skin itched from holding everything in until the moment came. I walked past the living room one evening, late. Leona was on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and tight. "No, I told you not to send it here." My sister's getting suspicious. Pause. "No, Ethan doesn't know. That's the point. Just hold off, okay?" Another pause. I said I'd take care of it. I backed away before she saw me, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. My suspicions weren't just paranoia. They were real. She was hiding something from Ethan. She was hiding him. Vincent K. Meyer wasn't just a generous donor. He was her secret, her leverage, her affair, and I was the one paying to keep it quiet. Let's finish her journey. I didn't watch the whole interview. Just the first few seconds, enough to see Leona's perfectly painted face begin to crack as the journalist asked the question, "Miss Leona Sanders, were you or were you not in a romantic and financial relationship with Vincent K. Meyer while engaged to Ethan Grant?" Her lip twitched. The screen froze. My internet buffered, maybe out of mercy. I closed the laptop slowly and leaned back against. The couch. The apartment was still, warm from the sunset dripping through the curtains. There was no screaming from the hallway, no smell of scorched casseroles, no bitter silence at the dinner table, just me, just quiet, just peace Dada had taken. Everything to get here. After I exposed her publicly, unapologetically, my family treated me like a traitor. Mom told me I was jealous, that I'd ruined Leona's big day. My father called me a disgrace. They packed my things in trash bags, left them by the sidewalk, and locked the door behind me. No goodbye. No hesitation. I had nothing but 2 bags, a cracked phone, and a list of numbers I didn't know if I could still trust. But somehow, that was the moment I felt free. The days that followed were the hardest. I couch surfed. I skipped meals. I cried on trains, in public bathrooms, under flickering streetlights. But I also learned to breathe again. I found work that didn't drain me. I met people who looked me in the eye and saw more than a worker. And slowly, so slowly, I began to heal. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped expecting them to see my worth. I stopped trying to be the daughter they wanted and started becoming the woman I needed. Leona's wedding never happened. Ethan left her 2 weeks before the ceremony. Word spread fast. Turns out Vincent's wife had found out everything too. He pulled his hush money. Leona tried to spin it as slander, but the receipts I had, they spoke louder than her tears. My parents tried to patch it all together. They told our relatives I was unstable and had always been difficult. But it didn't matter anymore, because the people who mattered saw the truth. And I did too. One morning, I stood in front of a mirror in my tiny new apartment, looking at my reflection with no makeup, messy hair, and the softest smile I'd ever worn. I didn't look like the girl they raised to stay silent. I looked like someone who had survived a storm and built a shelter from the wreckage. I got a new job, graphic design, the dream I thought I'd buried. I stopped overworking myself to earn love. I chose peace, even when it meant loneliness. I made my space soft and mine, peppermint oil by the window, warm lights in the kitchen, a door that I could lock, not to keep people out, but to keep myself safe inside. Leona tried to reach out once. A lone email, full of excuses and empty apologies. I didn't respond. I didn't need closure from her. Because the truth is, I was never the problem. I was never less than. I was just inconvenient to a system that relied on my silence. And I'm not silent anymore. I'm not working myself to death to buy someone else a fantasy. I'm not shrinking to fit into someone else's spotlight. I'm not funding secrets. I'm not a workhorse. I'm not their backup plan. I'm Riley. And I finally walked away. The end.